If you have a hoop band like this, or even if it's not tied and it's just a stretch band, you take this, you pin your elbows at your sides like this, grab this, palms up, and rotate out. When you do that, you're gonna wanna stick your chest up, elbows in, rotate out. Hold, control on the way back in. If you happen to have something like a towel that you can roll up and kind of pinch to hold your elbows against your sides, that's gonna be even better to keep your elbows in place. However, you can do these without any sort of aid like that. These are called banded external rotations. And we're working on some rotator cuff muscles there.
Where would you get a band like that? Amazon?
Yeah, you could order something like this off Amazon. You may be able to find like a pack of them at like a Target or a Walmart in their fitness aisle, but definitely on Amazon.
Okay, and they're just fitness bands? Or...
Yeah, stretch bands, TheraBands, something like that. If you do stretch bands, you'll get all sorts of different results of different sizes, and some tube like this, some of them flat, kind of looks like wide tape. But yeah, there's all sorts of different options. You know, if you're looking to strengthen just in general some back muscles, we'll pretend that this is a dumbbell.
Okay.
Dumbbell rows. We'll do this partially standing, something to lean on. So got your arm here, have the same leg forward as the arm with a stagger stance. Try and think about having your hips square and your shoulders square. You have your weight hanging down here like this. Let your shoulder drop towards the ground without changing the position of your hips, and then pull it back and pull this up towards your belly button and let it back down and repeat. That initial shoulder movement right there, that is using all of the muscles that control your scapula before you do the row part. And these muscles here that are right in this area are the muscles that you would use to help keep your shoulder anchored before you go to draw your bow back. They're also the same muscles that you would use on the other side to draw your bow back. So you would perform that 10 to 15 repetitions, 3 sets on each side, and you could do that a couple times a week. Try and give yourself at least a day or two in between just so you don't overdo it. And yeah, that's one of the prime areas of movement. It's just a dumbbell row. It hits your lats, trapezius, rhomboids, and if you really emphasize that shoulder movement, you can help to create more of a better foundation for the initial part of your draw cycle.
What's your theory on fatigue versus failure?
In training, well, not everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, and not everybody needs to train like a bodybuilder. If we're looking for just general performance, put on muscle, we're not trying to be extreme with what we want to do. We may want to prevent injuries and not go crazy with our workouts. Working to a point of fatigue. If you're going to try and work towards failure, the only really big problem that I run into with that is it's much harder to maintain good form. And if we're trying to do this in such a way that we have longevity, we want to emphasize form over how much the load is that we move. So work within where you're comfortable for a while until you've got a really firm foundation on the movements and you can do them well even into failure, and then maybe explore that.
Do you have a way of describing what failure is?
There's a lot of different definitions. However, for the context that I just set, failure is when you cannot perform the movement at the load that you've set with the correct form. If you cannot perform it with correct form at the load you've set, period, then you have too much weight. There's going to be a lot of times that people are using more weight than they need to, and it's always better to work lighter, do the movement correctly. We can always add more weight later, but if we are disciplined in the way we approach different movement patterns, we can avoid creating bad movement patterns that can increase the chance of injury in the long run or increase the chance of poor shooting when you're on the shooting line.
Let's say I'm doing one of those exercises and my form starts to break down at like 8 reps. hurts, but I'm not like, my muscle isn't like burning, like in pain. Would that meet your definition of failure?
Yeah, if we're looking at it from the standpoint, if we're trying to perform these movements correctly and train the movement pattern with a load in the gym with some sort of weight or machine, and we're doing that from the standpoint if we're trying to create better movement and stronger, correct movement as opposed to just build more muscle or just be stronger in general. The time period where, okay, I cannot hold this form, but my muscles are failing me to do so, it's not a really like that long of a time period. If you're disciplined in the way you approach it and you practice it, once that movement becomes more natural, you'll catch right back up to the weight that you were lifting before, and because you're using things better, you're likely to shoot past what you were able to lift before you started dialing it back and being a little more critical about the process.